Welcome to the Bayou City Soccer Podcast. Whether inside or outside the loop, we are talking everything soccer in Houston. Y'all ready? Let's get it. Houston, welcome back to another episode of the Bayou City Soccer Podcast. My name is Rudy Segura. I am hoping you have a really good Monday so far, hoping that you are here to join us tonight. And if you get to listen the next day, on that podcast, definitely looking forward to you being a part of the community. But I am not alone to talk Houston Dynamo and Houston soccer in general. Cristian Putalias, my co-host, is here as well. Cristian, welcome to the show, man. A lot of blue, huh?
Yeah, I know, right? Today's blue day. I'm feeling blue, and then you're feeling blue. Blue-grana.
Yes, yeah. It's rare that you see me wearing my Barcelona hat, and I have a bunch of shirts too that for some reason I don't seem to wear as much. Don't get me wrong, but
so all the Madrilistas on the chat, go ahead and start hitting them.
I know that's a good question for you. I know that you don't really follow any other team apart from Boca, and I guess at this point maybe Dynamo, but everywhere you go, if you're, I think like. Specifically like people in El Salvador, it's either one or the other. and I think that goes for a lot of people in general. You have a lot of Argentinians that like played for both of them. So is there any pull? Does any of your family members root for any of them?
No, not really. They could care less. But I think the pool is probably closer to Barcelona just because of Riquelme played there at least.
I was like Riquelme, Maradona, and Messi. So
yeah, basically. The three greats, the three goats.
The
top three in my book, they played for Barcelona. So I guess it leans more that way than the other way. And Boca played Real Madrid in the 2000s, so we beat them. But I hate them both equally, so it's fine.
There you go. No love from you towards the La Liga, La Liga giants here. But again, we're not alone. Cristian, we are joined by a very special guest. Joined by Victor Araiza from the Deportes Nation, Soccer Texas. You may know him. I feel like you're a little bit of everywhere, Victor. So, people know who you are. But welcome to the show, man.
Glad I hope so. Here. I've been around for a few years, so if they don't, probably doing something wrong.
Yeah, I think that all of us that cover the sport, I think we've seen you, as one of the greats because we've seen you so often and for, like you said, such a long time. I mean, we really haven't covered the sport as much as you have, and I mean, you have pictures with Lewandowski and talking about greats, man. Yeah. You had the opportunity to have some of those really cool opportunities, man.
Yeah. I've been lucky, blessed that way, but I think. We all get opportunities when you kind of put yourself in situations. Life rewards you that way. So you guys have been doing a lot as well. So I think you guys are up there now.
We're trying, man. We're trying to be out there like you. But no, again, dude, we are happy and it's an honor that you're here with us today to talk Houston Dynamo, of course, but obviously, soccer in Houston in general. So we'll get into some things that are happening, obviously big event in the summer, and we want to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah. Well, pleasure, honor's all mine. Glad to be on the show. It's a little weird for me because usually I'm on watching on YouTube, so this setup has me a little thrown off because I'm not usually on this side. But fan of your show, and again, I appreciate all the stuff you guys have done lately. You kind of. Probably the most consistent outlet is week to week coverage, that kind of stuff. I know you guys are trying to get after it, so certainly appreciate what you guys do for the coverage locally. Just wanted to kind of put that out there.
Thanks, man. Thanks. So again, we have a lot to talk about. I know that it's a strange week altogether because there was no MLS, there was hardly any soccer when it comes to clubs in general because of the FIFA break. And some important games still to be played. And some of that, again, will come back with the World Cup. But we do it a little different. Usually each week, Monday, we kind of recap the game that just happened and then go into previewing the next match. There was no game. So we go straight into, we go straight into what would be the week 5 for Houston Dynamo. They'll be taking on the Seattle Sounders at 7:30 p.m. at Shell Energy Stadium. Another opportunity to send the crowd home happy against a tough opponent. It's going to be difficult. Obviously, Seattle tends to have the best when it, against the Houston Dynamo. I think if, people that cover the sport, people that follow the Dynamo, I mean, we all kind of want to see them turn into what Seattle Sounders is. And, it's one of those games that brings a lot of feistiness to it. We've seen it in the past in playoff matches, those rivalry matches. We know the very last one was the last playoff game was against Seattle Sounders a couple years back. It's just a different type of rivalry. I don't know. What are your thoughts on it altogether? I know it's the beginning of the season, but it's still a matchup that has a lot to offer, doesn't it, Victor?
Yeah, I mean, usually it's one of the tougher games because Seattle, you mentioned it, they've kind of been the standard, kind of with the Dynamo, where Dynamo were headed, before that decline after the Robertson era. But obviously, Brian Schmetzer, for my money, probably the best coach, best tactician in the league. And that always makes it hard. But listen, I think there's very few games that the Dynamo shouldn't be able to win at home. LAFC was one of them. The only other one I would probably put in there, maybe Vancouver this season. This one I think looks winnable because the way it lines up in the schedule. Obviously, you're coming off an extra week of rest. Sure, you might not have like an Eric Sviatchenko, but more than anything, you'll probably field an A team against the Seattle Sounders that's preoccupied with the CONCACAF Champions Cup. I would think they're looking ahead a little bit towards that game down there at Tigres, where they you might catch a little bit of a break here. And plus, you're at home. You guys have heard my thoughts about wanting this team to kind of get after it. And I don't see a situation here where the Seattle Sounders would be overly superior, especially with Houston at home.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. And I'll put here the last results for Seattle Sounders. They beat San Jose 1-0. They beat Vancouver, as you mentioned, in the Champions Cup. And then they tied Minnesota with James Rodriguez. A lot of people wanted him for Houston, but
I wanted him for Houston for sure.
0-0 draw.
You put me on that list.
Add you to that list. And of course, we know the type of lineup, right, that Seattle tends to put out. It's always a very good lineup, a mixture of a lot of Seattle, I guess, natives and homegrowns, and then of course they do a very good job of bringing in talent from abroad. You look at the lineup. I think Christian, a player like Paul Rothrock is one of those guys that, incredible story coming out through the academy and with Tacoma Defiance and then eventually into the first team. It looked like he was on his way out more or less because he was kind of playing
excited there.
Free agency. A lot of people were like, man, that would be a fantastic grab for any team, not just the Houston Dynamo. But of course, he stays there. I mean, what are your takeaways with some of those players, that it seems like they're getting old, but yet they're still so good, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of like what Victor was saying. I mean, and what you were saying, it's just a well-oiled machine. So it's kind of hard to because whenever Victor was talking about maybe not playing all the starters because obviously they have a tough game, but when you look at the bench, sometimes you're like, well, some of those guys could start too, or they're also difference makers. I mean, even I call him Rothko. After the painter, but Rothrock or whatever his name is, he started like that, right? And they have guys that come off the bench or come off the second team, and I mean we know how Tacoma, it's always a pain. I mean the last few years always the pain in the butt for Dynamo Dos, and I mean this is I think this actual game that they had last Dynamo 2 had the previous weeks,
couple of weeks ago,
that was the first time that they beat them. So I mean, it just kind of show that, I don't know, maybe in the future things are kind of evening up, starting on that level. But it kind of showed how Tacoma always had a good team, even on their second team, kind of building those guys up. And and they're just like a staple in the league of how to do things right from the academy, from, like you said, a combination of local and, international players. And they're just like a well-oiled machine. They have a good coach that knows the culture of Seattle, like, has a defined style per se, and just kind of, what you're gonna get when you play against Seattle. And I think it's a good thing, and it's a good thing. I don't think there's any bad about that. And yeah, I mean, that's what I got.
Yeah, no.
I'll mention to you one guy that I wish was playing for Houston, and that's Osaze de Rosario. I don't know why we didn't get him here. We didn't win. I mean, come on, we should have D-Ro on the phone, right? Why isn't this kid playing in orange? But those are the kinds of examples of they find guys' talent to sort of they don't have to have a link specifically to Seattle. Some of them do, right? We talked about Rock as being an example. They just moved a guy like Ovid Vargas over to Atletico de Madrid. So I mean that's and obviously in the community, I think and just that link they have, I think they do everything.
And that's a very good, interesting point, because obviously, Ovid, it's a guy from Alaska, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously, originally, still
they got him in the academy.
Technically, close enough. It's still far away, but I mean, that's the scouting. I mean, it has to be top notch whenever you pull a guy. As you mentioned, he's 19 years old, I believe, 18, 19 years old, and goes to Atletico Madrid.
And it also shows the connections. I mean, if you go straight from, all the teams have connections, right? But going straight from Seattle to like Atletico Madrid, it kind of shows also what other teams around the world are looking for and looking at. And Seattle,
and Atletico got to see him personally because they faced him in the Club World Cup, which Seattle got in by winning the CONCACAF Champions Cup.
And everything, I mean, it's pretty obvious in the world of soccer, but everything is an opportunity for these players, and not only for the players, but the teams and the clubs. I think you, Victor, posted something earlier. I don't know if today or earlier this week or last week, I guess, about like the surge and like building your brand internationally in a way.
Yeah,
and I think Seattle was one of those brands. Other than the LAs and New Yorks and Miami, right? That they have marketed and branded themselves very, very well to international audiences. I think Seattle is, they're getting there, being, I don't know if we call it a small town because it's not a small town, but it's maybe one of those like, oh, what's Seattle? But
it's a hotbed at the end of the day.
People see it as that. I mean, in North America, at least, it's one of the go-to teams. Like you have your Mexican teams, your powerhouses, and then when you look at the US, you look at the MLS. Other than the flashy names, Seattle's going to produce great players as well.
Yeah, and it's picking up to me as a lot of, again, they have the homegrown availability. Obviously, we know that Seattle Sounders have been around from, I don't know, things like the 70s. I mean,
Brian Ching played for one of the versions of the Sounders.
And so it makes it interesting because, again, as I mentioned, not just Houston to be something like that, but I'm sure there's plenty other MLS teams and plenty other just North American teams that would want to be what Seattle Sounders is, always being competitive, as you mentioned. They're always playing in at least 3 competitions. They're always, fighting to be one of the top 4 teams in every competition. And they do a fantastic job of, again, bringing in those homegrowns, but also hitting on, bringing Clint Dempsey, if we go all the way back, they brought him in a good time. You go back to Obafemi Martins. You guys remember that guy? He wouldn't stop scoring goals, doing all
Freddie
kinds
Montero
of
was a good pickup too, also in the early years.
Exactly. So it's they do a fantastic job, and that culture is ingrained. I think is definitely a genuine soccer market, and there's
Craig Weibel, by the way, who
didn't
really get that chance here in Houston, but now he's up there in their sporting department. That's another guy that could have probably got him brought into here. Look, I know people are going to probably watch this show and they're like, man, it's the Seattle Love Fest. But I got a chance to go up to Seattle a couple years back. Actually, more than a couple years back. This was 2017 when they went up there for the playoffs. From Nacogdoches, did Clint Dempsey.
I'm waiting
for
that.
We get him?
I'm waiting for that series to drop out.
But, I look at a lot of that stuff from Seattle, and as an example of what Houston could be, I don't see a reason why Houston can't be everything that Seattle is, because I think we have just as much, if not more, of a passionate soccer market here.
Yeah.
I know it's a mix of cultures, but I think, we got more numbers if we put it together.
Yeah.
And listen, they got a museum up there as well. I'd like to see a museum here to the soccer history in Houston. Obviously the march to the match, all that kind of stuff. But again, going back to on the field, I don't think they're, and especially the later years, I don't think they're the superpower. I just think they cross their T's and dot their I's, and that's why they get things done. And I think if Houston were to, put a little bit more of that consistently, I don't see a reason why they can't be the same. I don't see a reason for this Dynamo to be afraid of this Seattle, especially again when maybe they have to worry about having another game midweek when the Dynamo don't. Playing at home, the heat, all that stuff. Usually the Pacific Northwest teams don't travel that well. And going back to that playoff series a couple years back, I actually thought the Dynamo should have won, because I think
I agree.
that was one of the more beatable Seattle teams.
Yeah,
I think kind of like it is now, the conduct got to them. Carrasquilla got a red card in that first leg. Herrera got it in that second leg with this famous spitting incident. But I think if you can keep your mental composure, you certainly have the talent to go 90 minutes with Seattle and beat them.
All right, so going into this match, as you mentioned earlier, Sviatchenko being red carded, he won't be a part of it. Lucas Halter as well, dealing with an injury. Obviously, we already know Arthur was going to be out, but I think those major, center back issues that you're running into, the club had to sign Agustin Resch. I was trying to remember his name. So
that was a good little pickup too. That's one of them where I just wonder, why didn't he go straight to the first team? Why do we have to he doesn't seem like he needs to go through Dynamo too, other than to get playing time. But I like Resch. That's a good one.
Yeah, and he has a we were able to talk to him. We didn't get too far into like his whole story, but he did play in USL 2, if I'm not mistaken, for a time whenever he was in college. So I mean, he's 23, almost 24 years old, and a 24-year-old
that was a good interview.
Is usually, a 100-game starter if you're playing with Barcelona. No. Come on, guys. So it just makes it interesting. And no, you're right. I think that it's funny that for a while I felt the draft for the Dynamo specifically was a lot of misses. I mean, you look at the amount of players that were brought in and just didn't really stick. And this season in particular, pretty much, I think they got 5 guys. 4 of them were able to get signed to D2 to start, as you mentioned, including Resch, but they seem to have hidden a bunch of those guys. So it's interesting. And again, that center back position is really struggling with depth. And, you bring him in to go against an LAFC team that has all the, high quality players. And he, I know there's a word in Spanish, but I won't say it. But
Well, you scared? Say it.
Yeah, exactly. but anyways, but he played well, and so for him to get that opportunity, a couple more games, and then getting that contract, it's massive. And for specifically this game, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the starter here. Gets a start at such a young career with the first team. Christian.
Yeah. Shout out Femi. No, I have a question for Victor, because obviously now with this whole 3 center backs, obviously it makes it even worse, because you went from just needing 2 to now 3.
And look, they're not married to this formation. They could change it if they want to.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, I'm one of the proponents of, I hate this this formation. Let's change it. But I guess my question more directly would be like,
how do you surplus of wing backs? You have to stay with
how do you feel about this whole 3 center backs with the wing backs and stuff like that? Just like your opinion in general on that formation. Do you see it like flourishing? Do you think they got the pieces for it? Just kind of a little bit.
Well, I mean, the problem is it was something they were trying when they had Dorsey on one side and Nolly on the other. And so when you let go of Dorsey, I think that kind of threw a wrench in the whole thing. And again, I mean, I could see where they might have changed it. Maybe they didn't want to do that immediately in the first game, just because the way that Dorsey was let go right away, and if this was basically what you practice the entire preseason. But I mean, you have the freedom to go forward to back. They played that with Olsen before. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I was headed with you guys. I mean, let's say they stick to that formation. I mean, I guess Carlos is going to be one of your center backs. You don't have Sviatchenko. Like you said, if you don't have Halter, then Resch is probably the other one. But then you still, I mean, I guess Andrade would be the third.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm missing somebody.
No, it would be Andrade.
Yeah.
I saw that, and I told the guys I saw that. Was it the U.S. Open? No, which one? The golf that was getting played. They tagged Daniel Steres as
the Houston Open. Yeah,
and
yeah,
I was like, hey.
Yeah.
Bring him back, man. I mean, you need that.
I had the same reaction because they
bring
said
him out of
Houston Dynamo
retirement
or something, and I was like, I didn't know if Steres was still on the team.
Hey, I was a big fan of Daniel Steres. That guy is
a brand ambassador. Daniel Steres.
He's a big dude. But this topic can go obviously into further detail. We want to get more stuff in here, but when it comes to the match itself, I'll let Christian think about his divination. He hit last time. He said a Brazilian was going to score. Brazilian scored. He went with a cop out, with like half the team being Brazilian.
Right.
Start thinking of something. But Victor, your thoughts on what the scoreline could be for this matchup?
Oh, well, I mean, it's probably going to be, I mean, again, we have to kind of see what lineup they put out. But I mean, I think they should, however way you plan it, you should be going for 3 points. They're not usually the kind of team that, likes to go out and risk a lot. I think that's kind of been one of my criticisms that, if they score first, they try to defend. And I think Olsen said it before too, where, they don't mind winning 1-0. So unless Seattle kind of pushes them to, like that Portland game where they have to come out and make a comeback here, I'm going to go ahead and say 2-1. I'm going to lean to, they win, but they win by the minimum margin.
Yeah, honestly, that's kind of what I'm thinking as well. I think 2-1. I think the only thing that is to note, weather-wise, you may run into a couple of rain delays, possibly from what we're looking at. Hopefully that changes.
Good. That'll make it humid.
Yeah, the game's gonna end at 1 a.m. probably. I don't know if I'll be there. My bedtime tends to run out there sooner than that. But there was a few call-ups or international call-ups for Seattle. Not many, only 3, and 4 with Rodon as well. But also, as you mentioned, the factor of them having to play midweek against Tigres, so the lineup could fluctuate, but I feel like sometimes we say the same thing because, again, Seattle's always playing so many competitions and they still come to Houston and somehow take all 3 points. Somebody asked when was the last time Houston beat Seattle, and when I looked it up, it said 2021, so it's been a minute. It's been a minute to that.
It's been a while.
Christian, your thoughts on that, predicting that final score, and of course any divinations that you may put out there, for the betting folk.
Yeah, we'll start here for all those that want to take my advice on betting money. Don't, first of all. And then I think the Dynamo I think I'm in the same train of thought that they will win. The margin, it's going to be tight, but just for divination purposes, it's going to be a 2-goal differential, and Ponce will score this game. If he doesn't score this game, then we can just call his agent and be like, hey, we gotta. No, I'm just kidding. But I think it's time for Ponce to kind of get on that sheet. I mean,
it's about time, man.
He's one of those guys that he works hard off the ball, but you have him to work hard with the ball in a sense. So obviously you can't just rely on Guillermo to do everything all at once. So Ponce needs to, like we say in Spanish, mojar, like he has to score or give me an assist or something like that. So he'll be part of a contribution there, and I think it would be a score of 2 in the favor of Dynamo. So I will go 2-0.
I know, right? Right now, my Ponce prediction of 15 goals for the season is not looking great.
Yeah,
so
it's not looking
we got to start with at least 1 goal here. But no, I think I agree with you guys. I think this may be a positive result for Houston. And if it's been since 2021 that they've last beat Seattle, it's time, man. And then someone needs a Olympia for sure at this rate. Okay. I wanted to hit on some more topics. Obviously, Dynamo 2 is another team that we talk about and cover here. Same thing as Dynamo as the first team. They did not have a game this week, and they actually won't be back till October.
That's crazy.
April 12th again. 4 straight wins for them, 0 goals conceded in 2026. They're the best team by far in MLS Next Pro. They'll be taking on Austin FC 2 at Palmer Field. They're actually going to a 10-game road trip, which is kind of interesting, right? They started with 4 games at home, and they'll be going on a long road trip. I think their next home match is in July, so it's a minute. But I wanted to move into that because a part of them doing good, I think it all involves the academy as well. And I know Victor, this is a big discussion point for you and everybody that covers the team, the academy, and bringing those homegrowns. As we mentioned earlier, if we're all being honest, we would love for Houston to be a lot like the Seattle Sounders in that aspect. They announced the hire of new academy general manager Brian Scales. He does have a history with other MLS clubs and running those academy systems. Maybe just your thoughts on him if you have any. I know there's not a ton of information out there per se, but just, maybe what you've seen from the academy. I know right now there's definitely a lot of noise because of players again that come through D2, or maybe in like a Matthew Arana that is going to kind of, I wouldn't call it put a band-aid on it, but obviously in the sense of there's something, right? Something's kind of happening. I mean, they've been the organization has talked about it, getting better and being there, and we know that it does take some time to see those fruits, but more or less, on that topic, Victor.
Yeah, I mean, I hope things are heading in the right direction. Again, there's been some criticism as of late, right? I mean, Glenn had a whole segment there on his show, and when you see some of these signings like Arana, you hope it's not reactionary just to kind of calm the fires, because at the end of the day, he's still a 15-year-old. If this doesn't pan out for him. And listen, this is a decision you probably got to talk to beforehand with the parents, kind of guide him through it. But if this doesn't work out for him, he probably had a free ride for a college degree. And so again, let's hope it pans out for him and he doesn't just kind of fade like some of these other star players. That's not to put over pressure on him, but that's kind of the reality of what's happened here in the past. The Cristian Lucateros, right? Memo Rodriguez is kind of the one guy who sort of broke through, but we know the dedication there that from him. And I don't know if he was the most talented player, but you saw with just the hard work kind of where it drove him. And maybe now he's in the USL and maybe that's the kind of level he had. I don't know if he would have had as much playing time on a better MLS team, because let's remember the Dynamo, what they were during those years. But again, the Brian Salazars and all these other stars that we were, Juan Castilla, right? Palomino. Talked big about him. Palomino's another one that went through Dynamo too and got those minutes, and we never really got any explanation of what happened. Beto Avila was another one that went to the academy, and again, so Xavier Valdez, right, where they kind of brought him from. I know they brought him from New York. I think it was New York City FC. So there's been all these instances, and even recently where it's just been, the cautionary tale again. Brooklyn Range, who you brought in, the moment you can make a quick buck on him, they kind of let him go. There's some things out there with the Gatau brothers, I believe, right? They were in the academy. I don't know what's happening.
I think one of them is still there. I thought the younger brother, the other guy kind of disappeared, and honestly, he just MIA. So who knows exactly what went that down? But if you guys remember, he came in and press in like preseason, and then as you mentioned, kind of just disappeared.
And then you got the kid out of HTX who's playing now at Monterrey.
Yes,
Sebastian Rodriguez. Kind of why didn't
him too? But
what happened there? You're not going to get everybody, but I'm saying nobody's ever come out and said well, he was on our radar. We tried to get him. We didn't. I mean, there's never any talk about this stuff,
You know,
right?
you know what's
Part of it
crazy?
is the lack of the media attention.
I'm gonna throw a little nugget in there to light the fire a little bit more. But in that same team, that same high school team, I say this because I know the coach. They had a freshman forward, when Allen was a senior, and that freshman forward got signed by Sporting Kansas City, or he got a contract by Sporting Kansas City. So same thing.
Well, and then again, going back way back when, there was the kid who won the Sueño MLS, one of those editions, and he was 14, and then that was kind of be the promise, and then we never really. So, and I know I'm going back here, but I mean, there's all these instances throughout the years. Chris Richards is another one I'll bring up because he came through Houston. Again, if the academy was working the way it should have, he should have been a Dynamo. And we're talking about this World Cup. We could have a player on the U.S. men's national team that could have been representing the Dynamo Academy. So look, ultimately, again, they're not going to get all of it right, but I think the hope is there that they can kind of do what Seattle has done, or some of these teams around the league. The other part of it is, because it's kind of the truth, is being realistic. This isn't going to be one of the top spenders in MLS. So if you're not going to be one of the top spenders, some way you can make some money and then reinvest that money into the club is by yielding some players from the academy. And then obviously, the common, the thread down here with you get some more people down there because they can relate. I will say, I don't know how much, because this thing is, it's not so much the qualifications of a guy who's coming in to be the academy director. It's also knowing the market and mending all the burnt bridges that were, for lack of a redundancy, burnt before. I don't think it was the most successful thing under James Clarkson when Paul Holliker was here. I think it was more of the same. That's where I think there has to be, for the new director coming in, he has to understand, the landscape here, that there's been some ruffling of the feathers, if you will, with some of these academies around town. It's not going to be an easy job. I know Pat has said things have gotten better and they got out of the youth game and all that stuff, but I think, there's got to be somebody that, and maybe we'll see if he's the guy for it, that, tills the soil and brings the community together in that sense. That's hard work. That's going out there, that's talking to academy directors, that's winning people over, that's keeping promises, right? So, and all this goes up to, what are they doing with Dynamo 2? It's not just about giving guys minutes, but is Dynamo 2 a successful bridge to Dynamo 1, right? To being to getting an MLS opportunity, again, to be seen with Arana, but with other players also. I can see where some, and again, nobody's ever come out and said, and maybe part of it's because none of us have gone out and interviewed some of these guys that have left and said, well, what happened? Did you get opportunity? Did you just not like what they were offering you? Or vice versa? We haven't really gotten that from, I believe, from Asher or Pat, where they have come out and said, well, listen, we tried, we did this much. It just didn't happen with this player because of this, because of that. So I think a lot of, for me, the skepticism is that we don't know what some of these instances are. But and then you got somebody like because speaking, they're facing the Austin 2 in the next game, Rodolfo Borrell, who's the sporting director over in Austin. In one of his press conferences, he basically said the level between MLS and MLS Next Pro is this huge gap, and you're talking about a guy who's coming from Manchester City. And coaching with Pep Guardiola, right? So, then that's where you kind of wonder, well, what's the missing bridge here? I know this is like a big, probably a bigger answer than what you expected, but to me, it kind of seems like it is a complicated problem, and it's got to kind of be all hands on deck because they're competing against the Seattles, the FC Dallases, the LAFCs, the Salt Lakes, the Red Bulls.
Let me add a couple things to kind of this, right? I think also, I think all the points you hit do make sense. Obviously, we don't know all the answers because obviously a lot of these things are handled, inside the house and they don't really tell us anything. I think it's a great question to ask, the actual people or, Pat or Asher now, or even those players that, what happened in Houston? I think that is an awesome question that should be asked, and maybe not to like light a fire and like throw shade or whatever, but it's just
we
to
just
know,
want
right?
to
To
be in
clarity.
the know.
Exactly, just for
Hey.
clarity purposes,
Yeah.
because I feel like the fan base has been burned in Houston for so many years, where literally nothing came out of Houston. I mean, I was just trying to think of like a one player that actually made a difference, and I think other than Memo, who we can argue if he made a difference or not, was the only player that consistently played, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think obviously there was a regime change, right, with Ted and all that. It seems like they're working towards it. Obviously, we won't see the dividends until a few years. I think, with Arana and maybe some of the guys that are playing in D2 will eventually, hopefully, maybe, right?
But I think
since
their takeover, I think you can kind of see like, the light at the end of the tunnel, because even then that wasn't a thing. And I mean, we talk about, Casillas, or you talk about Marcelo Palomino, and maybe, while they were talented and they were probably one of the best players in their age group here in Houston, you see where they end up going, and they just same thing. They go to what's supposed to be a lower, competitive league. I mean, you have Palomino playing in second division in Sweden, in a team that was always fighting relegation, and Casillas, same
But
thing.
then you have a guy like Kieran Sargent who's right now playing for San Diego, and he was one of the guys, that we were told a couple years ago, hey, he's gonna be the guy here. And again, we don't know what happened.
Exactly,
Maybe Kieran Sargent said, maybe he got disgruntled with Dynamo and didn't want to. We don't know, right?
Yeah.
That's part of the story.
And
but when you see him
definitely
playing in San Diego, you're wondering, hey, Houston could have used a left back. Where's what happened there?
There's a lot of questions, because I mean,
and that was an interesting one I just mentioned, is because I mean, for Sargent's sake, obviously he was playing with D2, then he goes to college. He's he's decent in college, right? Then he comes to Dynamo 2, and he was one of the worst players, and then they send him out to USL. He's average at best, so I think the decision is made. And then also it like you said, we don't know all the details, but it's funny because sometimes, as a player, when you start seeing your opportunities dwindle, then you have to really take full advantage. And it seems that what the kid is doing, which is great to see. And again, it goes to the could he work out with the Dynamo now that that happened? So
levels up.
It's such an interesting and dynamic for sure.
And that's also like not a problem, but like a thing about soccer, right? So it's like it's a sport of moments too. I mean, we saw it with Dorsey in a sense, right? Like Dorsey, you saw his rise, right? So he was trying to get that contract. Once he got the contract, it seems like he got complacent, in my opinion, and his level kind of dipped a little bit. I didn't think it dipped enough for the Dynamo to get rid of him as the way they did. Obviously, I think they did get rid of him because he was reaching another contract year, and I mean, I would have kept him personally, right? But I think they, like you said, Victor, they made a quick buck. When it comes to Brooklyn
Reigns, I think,
me personally. Yeah, this is just me speaking. I mean, I didn't like him that much. I didn't think he had the caliber to be a first team starter. I mean, in my opinion, I could be wrong, and he could be the next Messi or whatever. But I wasn't mad about that one. I was kind of mad about the Dorsey stuff, but obviously you kind of have to start playing around with like, okay, the business side of things and then the sporting side of things. But I think, in my opinion, I think they missed on that. I think Dorsey here would have been a whole lot better. I think, I mean, even Ben, when they asked him about it, I don't know if it was us or whoever asked him. I mean, he didn't seem too happy. But at the same time, he's like, well, I understand, it's the business of soccer. And I guess my comment was like, it's a sport of moments. I don't, like we said, we don't know what happened with Sargent. We don't know if maybe he was just going through a rough patch and the Dynamo were like, well, we're not going to use this kid because he's not that good. And then they sent him, and then the kid blew up. And it's just crazy. But my original comment was going to be with that disparity or that gap between, the first teams and D2. And it's crazy. And maybe it's going to take I don't know if it's gonna take years, because then also like the Dynamo fields the youngest teams in D2, which makes it extremely hard for you to plug in a 17-year-old into a team with when your youngest guy is like 23, 24. And how much experience can a 17-year-old have unless you're like Alamin Shamalu, which are what I
and
said.
Listen, I don't necessarily agree with Borrell, for example, that the gap's that huge. I mean, I think that's you have that team for a reason. But again, the example goes back. The perfect example, I think, goes back to what we just the team we're seeing this week. Seattle. That's why I don't like to. I mean, it's nice that they win.
I'm gonna get everybody on
the
here
title.
A Seattle Sounders hat.
But no, I'm fine. I respect them. I'm not. I'm just. But look, I think again, for me, some of these, and it's with the academy level too. It's not all just about winning with these teams. It's winning with the first team and using these teams. I mean, they don't have to win every game. They don't have to be on a 4-game winning streak. As long as you're getting those guys enough, to where they can reach the next level.
Exactly.
That's what I think these teams are for. Yeah. And Seattle has proven that and used that to their way, and other teams have too. And hopefully they can start doing that here.
Also, something I wanted to add with this whole youth system, youth academy, talking to other clubs and stuff like that. I don't know if they do it here in the MLS, because we all know the MLS is weird. They have their own rules. It literally is like the American to the world. They don't do kilometers, they do inches, and the MLS follows that trend, right? The American trend. But I know in other countries, at least in Argentina, I'm sure other countries do it, but whenever you discover a player and they go to the first team, and then that, let's just say, for example, right, for Boca buys them from, I don't know, Lanús, right? But not only Lanús gets a kickback or the actual sell, but his formation club also gets a kickback, which they're encouraged to produce more players because they're going to get kickbacks from every sale. I mean, we even saw it with Enzo Fernandez, he's playing at Chelsea now, but his team, his childhood team, gets a kickback. I don't know how.
I think that's a good point. That's a good point.
But it would be nice. Imagine having I don't know. I can think of GFI or these hometown clubs like Rangers. All these Houston.
Yeah, that would incentivize them to push them through.
Exactly.
I think you mentioned about Victor mentioned about the the bridges and bringing them back after being burnt. But one thing that I noticed, at least with say Arana, right? I think Houston, and if it wasn't Houston specifically on the the article that they put out saying that they signed him, but even Asher mentioned the club that he came from before, the Dynamo, which I think that's even a big deal from there. But also, as much as other countries and other leagues pump out as much, young talent that they can just add to their roster, there's also limitations to what the MLS allows you to do. And, the whole salary cap and a bunch of rules, I think that diffuses a lot of these guys to just pump out as much talent
but
as
again,
they could. But they definitely
Seattle finds a way to manage it. The LAFC finds a way to manage it. Miami finds a way to manage it. I mean,
there's ways
it's not impossible.
For sure. It's not impossible. And it cracks me up because as a guy that followed Liga MX for such a long time, seeing the rules as they implement and playing a lot of the younger players, I think, Victor, well, is it a U23 rule at this point? And I mean, they got such a
I think it's they got to get I think about 1,000 minutes or something now, and maybe that's why I was wondering what's this guy Alan Rojas. It just went. I was wondering if that was just something Monterrey did to kind of supplement that rule, or if they really saw something in him, because Monterrey is one of the highest spending sides. I was wondering how tough it was going to be for him to kind of, crack through a team like that. When again, maybe at a team like Houston, he could have had more opportunity. I don't know. But, he seems to be getting some playing time there. They seem to be getting him on the field. I don't know if it's just to that end of fulfilling that requirement with Liga MX and getting a younger kid minutes. So we'll see. And listen, that's the other thing too, where, again, this gets all complex too, because listen, not everybody's going to want to play ball with the Dynamo either. I'm not saying everybody in the youth game is an angel. I understand that. So that's, but again, the Dynamo can do as much as they can to help themselves. I think being transparent, that's also part of, I mean, if they see it as a benefit to do these media availabilities and get the word out, I mean, I think that's part of recruitment. If you do it in a way that you can win people over.
Yeah.
And the other side of it, the last thing I want to mention is that they have competition, and they've always had competition. But I mean, Monterrey obviously has this partnership now with, I think, with HTX, so maybe that's part of it.
Oh, dang.
But obviously Tigres has an academy here, America, Chivas, and all these other Mexican teams. So
didn't Bayern Munich just set something up
Bayern Munich
now?
actually, they had a thing with FC Dallas.
Yeah.
And they switched to LAFC because they saw that as more beneficial, I believe. And now I think FC Dallas is partnered up with somebody else. But I mean there's all these other partnerships that they could do as well. Again, I don't know if we're necessarily the youth experts here, but I think, again, you see ways around this league that other teams. I mean, Chicago Fire, for as bad as they were, and they get they got a couple, the goalie up there. They just sent there you go, and then they just sent the kid to Chivas. So I mean, there's talent. It certainly seems like MLS is a league that's kind of nurturing these younger talents more so than Liga MX. That's where kind of I think you're getting the Mexican press on it now, where it's like, really, MLS is going to make more Mexican players than Liga MX. Maybe part of that's because there's more teams to go around. There's less pressure. But I think that's the way the Dynamo can get in on the action. They can make some money. They can maybe get some wins. And my other thing in the past has just been, I don't understand why bringing in a guy that's maybe at the tail end of his career, when if you have a guy in the academy system or in your development system that might be a comparable level and has a bigger upside to him, why not? Why not give kids a chance?
Yeah, I agree. And it even goes as far as like having the colleges and universities. There's only one college team here. At one point you had San Jack, even my brother.
Yeah, you could do something with HCU where you collaborate with them.
Exactly. Like it's retaining the talent because as Victor, you mentioned, right? It is difficult to scout every single player. It's of course you should be able to point out which one's the better one, of course, but it's still difficult and it falls through the cracks. And players are gonna go.
Yeah, but I think there's enough.
You're trash, Christian.
There's enough talent in Houston to go around.
No, I was gonna say,
it's a huge soccer market.
Yeah, pay for my gas money. I got you. No, but it's it's funny because I mean,
gas is expensive right now, man. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I asked for gas money.
I have to take out a loan.
But I mean, obviously, I'm not saying go to every single Sunday league, but like, there's diamonds in the rough everywhere, right?
And what about even like the boat league?
I was just gonna say that. I mean, the kid Samir, I forgot his name. I'm sorry, but he played at the boat league, and I remember and I remember watching him. I called a couple of his games, and I was like, man, this kid's special. He's 16, but obviously, it's an environment. It's a college environment too, and those guys. I mean, that's the whole idea behind the boat league. Is like giving them a platform where they can be seen too, because everything's live stream. So, partnering with people like that, obviously I'm not saying partner with every single, Sunday league that has a camera, but, obviously I'm like Victor said, I'm sure it's hard to scout and stuff like that.
There's untapped talent. I feel there's a lot of talent here in Houston that still isn't getting a fair shot at the pro dream. And I think that's where Houston, I'm just saying, if a certain academy closes the doors to you, that's not the end of the world. There's plenty of talent all around Houston. Again, going to the community aspect, it could grow the club. People feel prideful, feel connected through these means. The Astros kind of do some of that with the way they go around town, refurbishing fields as well. So, I mean, I think it's there's enough like I said, there's enough to go around, and it's just creating those bridges to where if you find the next talent, I mean, and again, where it is like it is in the rest of the world, kids that grow up being fans of these teams, parents that grow up being fans of the team and want their kids to play for the Dynamo, and opening the doors and allowing people to get a chance. We never hear about tryouts. We never hear about a lot of these initiatives that could, again, people will show up. People want to. I mean, if you tell them, hey, you got a chance MLS, and maybe not everybody's gonna have the talent, but I mean, I think there's people will flock to you, and will become fans of the teams in the process if they see that opportunity. I believe that.
Yeah. I think, I mean, I don't think we're being negative. I think we're just kind of being realistic. But also on the other side of the coin, I feel like the Dynamo lately, at least, it seems like, there's a lot of bad things that they could get better at, or things that we believe that, it could be better. But I think that they are progressing little by little. Some things we don't understand, in my opinion, like they're little weird head scratchers. But I feel like they are progressing. Hopefully, right? All these, was it Scales? Brian Scales? Hopefully, he builds the bridges, again, and I think they have, right? Just getting out of the youth game and all these things that they have been doing. I mean, at the end of the day, obviously Ted is here to make money. You can't deny.
He can make more money. He could make more money of this operation. I mean, it hasn't been. Yeah. I feel they're sitting on a gold mine and they just 100%. Haven't tapped into it.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. And it leads all of this, and I think it's great discussion. And I'm going to bring another topic in, and I think it all still kind of relates. But we talked about it. There's a big event coming, this summer to Houston, a place that they should take full advantage of it. Wow. Victor, as you guys and Christian both discussed it, right? We know that the club itself seems to be doing things. We're going to focus on the Dynamo side of things, but, they seem to be getting things done in a better way when it comes to the technical side of stuff. But we all know that as we cover the team, that whether it be marketing, would be the connections and creating
a promotions team.
And a culture outside of the team that I don't know where you guys live around the city, but I never see Houston Dynamo gear in my area. And even when I lived inside the Loop in Midtown, I got lucky if I ran into somebody that had a jersey on, So there's so much of that.
When you go to, this is me being also annoying, but when you go to a Sunday league game or like these parks and stuff like that, and you don't see a Dynamo shirt, and you're like, bro, we're in Houston. Not one person rocks the hometown.
See, and that's where I'm telling you, because one of these, I would call it unsanctioned leagues, we'll call it, right?
Yeah.
Where I've, and then I've had the chance to help them out. I used to play there in the adult leagues. And again, maybe these are the kind of leagues where
you getting pirate shirts. Is that what you're doing, Victor?
No, but I'll tell you, I've seen teams wear the Dynamo jerseys in these leagues to kind of contradict that point right there.
Okay, good, good.
Yeah, I'm glad. I don't know if there's talent in these leagues. And this is the kind of thing where I'm saying, like, where maybe a Paul Holliker one time, they just kind of barge in and don't really introduce themselves. They just start walking around games and, so that's where I say, like, these are the things where they have to, fix the way they operate. I'm not saying this guy's going to be what Holliker was, or even James Clarkson, where you walk in and you want people to automatically start selling tickets for you. But I'm telling you, I've seen the passion for this team, up until shortly. I mean, I grew up in the East End, and I see it. I guess I'll just a full disclosure. We just bought our house. We just moved over here by the Memorial Park area. There's a house down the street from me that still has a Somos Fearless sign.
Hey.
And I go down to Laredo Taqueria, and they got the old Dynamo logo, the old school with the old school MLS logo. I mean, I think you go to Pluckers. Pluckers used to have, unless they've taken down the sign, the old sign with the Bud Light sign, or it's one of the beers. I can't remember which one, but it's the Dynamo logo with all that stuff, man. I mean, I think the passion is there, and certainly there's some long timers that, sometimes the love gets lost, but you can win them back, right? Yeah. And you can light the fire. And I mean, this right here, man, the time is now. And you're getting more competition because the Comets are coming back. NHL, people are clamoring for that. And as much as respect I have for all the hockey fans, I don't think, come on, man, there's no way we have more hockey fans than soccer fans in Houston, Texas. I refuse to believe that. Yeah, and I think there's room for everybody to enjoy their particular sport. Houston is that big of a city.
Yeah.
But
The-
man,
the-
I
The big
I really
issue
think
is you can't play hockey outdoors. That's the only big. You
yeah.
need a cut. No, but
You need
I
a
feel
roof.
you. And to your point, and it kind of brings me back. I mean, I kids whenever the Dynamo got here, I'm gonna age myself a little bit. I was a sophomore in high school, and I remember, there was such a big hype, and people that I played soccer with, they were super excited, and
Dude,
my ignorant
Yeah.
self was like, what is a Dynamo, right? Like I was big into Chivas and I was big into Liga MX, and I had no clue what the MLS really was and what the Dynamo were. And because of that, I missed, back to back finals and to get to celebrate with that. But now the friends that I remember from that time and kind of like fell in love with the team quite quickly, even though they themselves were like fans of other leagues. Now their kids, as you mentioned, the passion is there. They bring their kids. Their kids are, repping everything Dynamo. Basically they roam around the entire, their entire lives just wearing Dynamo stuff, and it's cool to see. And 21 years into what the Dynamo is. I mean, like anything, right? I mean, the EPL big leagues weren't created,
Yeah.
to stick right away.
Well, I'm right there with you. I think we're probably about the same age, and that's what I'm going to, man. Well, I'm coming from the Robertson days when we were just hoping people would know what the hell you were talking about when you mentioned the Houston Dynamo. To be even, as much as they're lacking, mainstream relevancy today, I think you can go around Houston and you say Houston Dynamo and people know what you're talking about. And that's a big win from where we used to be, man. We used to dream of those days. We used to, I mean, to have them on talk radio, to have fans that wanted to, basically, that's why I look at, Atlanta and Seattle and all these other markets. And I can't imagine that this couldn't be the same if it would just worked, right? And I know, some of it has to come from the fans. It can't all come from the club. It has to come from the supporters as well. Part of it can come from the club, and then the rest of it, I think, the former players, man. Again, to not see Osase de Rosario be on this team, to see Stuart Holden do some commercial for what is like DirecTV and have his kid in an LAFC jersey, man. I mean, if they don't want to put their kids in the Dynamo jersey, how can we say that the fans have let, some of these fans have let their teams go on to be, Tigres fans or Chivas fans? And I don't think you have to pick one or the other. I think you could be fans of both. I mean, I'm sure Christian's kids, they support Boca, but they also support the Houston Dynamo and that. So, I mean, yeah, man, to me, man, this is so much untapped potential here for both teams. And like I said, I think we used to, just dream that sportscasters knew who the hell the Dynamo were.
And even like, I mean, we've seen, granted, go into what would be the third home match for the Dynamo here at 2026. We've had, the crowd has been really good the first two games, and maybe like how I became a Dynamo fan, and I always say this, is coming to see the other team playing the Dynamo. Whether, I came to see Cuauhtemoc Blanco because obviously I was a big national team fan of Mexico, and same thing with like Rafael Marquez, who disappointed he never showed up. So I got to see Thierry Henry, was sitting in front of El Batallón, my brother with a jersey, getting booed at. I mean, no matter what, you're there, and like, you're a fan of the sport, and there's nothing like live soccer atmosphere. And when you have it locally, just give it a try. Don't shut it down right away. And I think that's part of it. And I think, talking about the World Cup, I think that's really what you're expecting, right? All this, we've heard it, and I know, Victor, you're a part of like, those meetings and of those committees and all that stuff. And it's just,
I wish.
Well, right. Well, I mean, I know that like
they do that. Hey, I'll give Dallas that. They're doing that up in Dallas. I've seen John Arnold, get brought in. I've seen
that's awesome.
Jesus Padilla and Steve Davis and a lot of that. We don't have that here enough, man. I think to me it's a shame. Especially when you got a guy like Glenn Davis in the community that should probably be more involved. But whatever, man. I just have to throw that one in there.
I agree.
I wish I was part of some of these, man. But I agree. We're getting into Canetti, and I mean that's a whole another conversation.
I agree. So. But my point is, like, they have this, and I mean, even if you take it granted, this is the World Cup in our home soil, But even I think was it 2018 or 2018 is when France won the World Cup, right? And so I remember when Pitch 25 opened up, and just the amount of people that went to that,
Yeah, they ran out of beer the first
right.
couple of days.
And I'm just talking about like that was like the way
they parked the Bud Light truck outside Pitch 25 just to be able to, comply and refill as soon as they ran out, and then that ran out of beer.
That's crazy.
And so my point is that it's like there's gathering spots, right? That was the hub. That was like the month-long hub for the World Cup. And of course, we know that in this World Cup, the plan is to, the entire area of Ito, or a good chunk of it, is going to be the hub for what is the World Cup. And with the stadium being, feet away from that area, the idea is that, and there's something that, you guys listen to this podcast enough that, we don't get paid by the Dynamo. We're going to say how we see it. And we see the lack of, tents and marketing that is being, it's like there's so many events that you can go to soccer related. I know Dustin would advocate it. His kids are in, playing in all kinds of leagues, and they're like, there's nobody here. There's thousands of kids playing here every single Sunday, every single Saturday. It's like, just make an effort. If you get 5 people out of those 1,000 people, you just gain new fans, and the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And so there, it's like, if you're gonna bank on it, and I don't know if we're ready, as a city, when it comes to all that. And to be fair, I'm super excited for the World Cup. It's been so sucky not to be able to get tickets for it, and obviously, unfortunately for us, I don't think we're gonna be able to cover the games. I guess we're not big enough for FIFA at this point, but before, the point is that the event is here. Is said, can you guys, as you mentioned earlier, can they take advantage of it? Would be the correct, and we don't know till we get there, right? The infrastructure, everything, we'll figure it out.
Especially because, again, I mean, you're gonna say it keeps harping on the old days, but
it's always good. And
we had the Dynamo
harping.
growth.
You have to remember history, so it doesn't.
We had McDonald's, and back then it was Continental Airlines, and even Mattress Mac was on board sponsoring the Dynamo back in those days. And I mean, I don't see why it can't garner those big brands also on top of the fans. I mean, the sponsors that they already have, right? I mean, come on, man. This is a worldwide game, and for me, I think that they have such an appeal that, and I know it's changed now. Because the NFL is going more global, and NBA and MLB are trying to do the same thing, but you got a sport that's played by everybody around the world, and again, especially if you were to bring a big signing here, like a James Rodriguez, or when you brought in Hector Herrera, I mean, that's an extra. That's why I would have liked to have seen James, because right now when you have the qualifiers with Colombia, those people will be following the Dynamo as well during the World Cup. And I'm not just using James because it's an easy example to kind of point to and say that's the draw that a player like that would bring, right? Kind of what LAFC are having with Son and Mueller, maybe not with the national team, but has that history. And there's all these different elements that when you bring it together, I mean, there's no reason to not think this could be, a big club. Yeah. Certainly one that fills up, every match. I'll say this because we were talking about the fans. I'd like to see them bring it a little more. I've from what I've seen on TV, some of them I'll say maybe when I retire, I'll probably go up there and walk the walk as I'm talking the talk right now. But again, I got to be with Batallon one time in the Robertson days, and it was, hey, you got to bring it. You got to bring the aguante. And that's another part, right? Batallon got thrown up there in that section when they used to be down here next to the tunnel. Little elements that kind of make it an intimidating atmosphere. Why can't we be as good as a Kansas City at home, right? Or any of these other teams? Salt Lake is filling up stadiums. I could go on all day.
No. And again, that's the topics that we try to bring every single time, especially right now that. There's not a ton of Dynamo news that we can talk about this week, so why not do it now? But going into the games that they're being planned to be take part here in Houston, obviously opening up with Germany, Curacao, Portugal. I was trying to look up that game. I think that's the one that is against Jamaica. and
The Congo, I think, is the other.
yes, that's
The
Congo.
powerful
Democratic Republic of Congo.
And
So
then
we'll find out
the
tomorrow.
Netherlands game, I believe that'd be the one against Iraq and Bolivia, maybe.
No, that's
Or, no,
Poland or
Poland,
Sweden,
yes.
I believe.
And then Portugal. I mean, everybody wants to see Portugal twice here. Mexico didn't get to see El Bicho play recently with the opening of Estadio Azteca, which that was right there a fantastic. They unveiled the new, or I guess the newly revamped Estadio Azteca. Now, what is it? Buena Norte? Is that the state? Buena Norte.
The Banorte, yeah.
They changed the name.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got a sponsor now, and that was a topic of discussion.
That's gross.
Portugal.
Shout out to River Plate
Yeah.
and the Monumental Mas.
Well, I mean,
the Mas Monumental.
all the stadiums are also gonna just be like Mexico City Stadium and stuff like that, right? I mean, they're just whatever the city is. Portugal versus Uzbekistan is gonna be here as well. Cabo Verde against Saudi Arabia.
Can't miss that one.
Must watch.
Hey, that might be the one we can actually get into.
Hey, that's what I've been saying too. The round of 32 game and a round of 16. Again, those are big. I mean, bringing Germany, Portugal, Netherlands. I mean, those are massive games, and of course, those knockout stages are gonna be incredible as well. We know how diverse the city of Houston is. I think I'd love it since I've been covering the sport, having the opportunity to go like even CONCACAF games, which I love, just seeing the amount of people that kind of come from the woodwork. So, knowing there's bigger nations that don't, obviously never really play here, it's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be a good time. Traffic is gonna optimally suck, but we'll make it out there to We'll get a beer together, guys. If we can't get into the stadium, I got you for a round in one of those games. Maybe we can.
Y'all heard.
A couple better than Saudi Arabia. We'll be tailgating that. I'm kidding. All right, my question here. We'll finish with this. Victor, thanks again. For joining the show, man. It's been good.
Yeah, no, thank you guys.
It's not over yet by any means. But my question to you, you mentioned some of the guys that they've kind of have come into the MLS. Obviously, we know Messi, since becoming a World Cup champion himself, Thomas Mueller, James Rodriguez. My question to you is, that we just heard Griezmann coming into for Orlando.
Yeah.
Obviously not necessarily.
James Harden didn't get it done, convincing him to. Remember when fans thought that was going to be an automatic? Just we had James Harden.
There's a shoe out there. There's a Dynamo shoe out there you can buy. It's orange. It's kind of foamy. That's all I know. I saw it at one of these sports stores the other day. But yeah, my question to you guys, it really this says, and I know it's all fancy lettering for whatever reason, but it says how many World Cup stars will make the jump to Major League Soccer after the final whistle. But you guys, who out of the teams that are here, and you can pick from your nation or whatever, but who would you want to see, in MLS? You can say MLS, and then you can say Houston Dynamo. I mean, we can always dream, right? You never know.
Well, I didn't give my wish with Fernando Torres, so after that, I was kind of like,
that would have been a good one.
I would have loved El Niño
bro, prime Nino.
Yeah, well, even non-prime. I mean, I think an MLS would have probably gotten it done. So I've
bodybuilder now. I think that dude is like 300 pounds of muscle, I believe. So
and again, an example.
Play defense now.
A club legend and obviously he's a Atleti fan, so he was never gonna go really anywhere else. But that's another example of how these European teams, they honor the legends, they bring him into the club in some way or fashion. Which I would like to see more here, right? Where's Brad Davis? What's he doing these days? Let's bring him into the fold and some of these other guys. So Will Bruin, call him up. But real quick back to your question. I don't know how many. I think I would probably lean to some of the, particularly the guys who could make the Dynamo more of a household name. With Mexico, you probably, Raul Jimenez is maybe the only guy that's probably closer to coming MLS and could maybe,
good old switcheroo for Ponce, man, at this rate.
bro.
Yeah, so I mean,
That
I
would
don't
be
know if
great.
you'll get that. I wouldn't even mind if they go out and get Sergio Ramos for at least rental for the rest of the year. Just again, just to bring people to the stadium, make the Dynamo a bit of a name. Um, I don't know. At this point, I mean, listen, it was a big deal when Herrera came here. I don't think anybody expected the Dynamo would get Houston would
Yeah.
get that big of a name. It
Yeah.
was a long time. I don't think people thought so.
Yeah,
That was certainly a
definitely. It
good
was
signing.
surreal when the news break out for sure. And that's another, and then we can talk another 30, 40 minutes about just how the marketing was so lackadaisical in his first stint with the Dynamo for sure. But, whoever that would be, and Chris, I don't know if you have any in mind. I know all you do is watch Boca in Argentina. So
Yeah.
if you say Messi, people are going to laugh because he's already here in the MLS.
Yeah.
So please don't say
No,
Messi.
I mean, you're right. I really don't watch a lot of soccer.
Cuti
believe it or not.
Romero, defense. I mean, he's
Yeah.
Spurs
I mean,
is
I think
caving.
we're gonna see a lot of those guys that have not ran out of
I would
time,
love to
but-
see the goalkeeper. I keep forgetting his name, but that's a
Dibu Martinez.
Dibu.
yeah, that's
That'd
Dibu was
be
like
awesome.
Noel Guzman type
Yeah,
of
basically.
guy.
Yeah. Well, that's an example right there.
Yeah.
Correa. That's a guy that I wouldn't have
Yeah.
thought was going to be that big of a name. But then you see what he's doing with Tigres. And I mean, even if you just get somebody of that caliber that can lift your game
true.
up, lift your team, automatically just by scoring goals, he'll bring some attention.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be necessarily like A-list players, but like, a B, C that can still play. I mean, Hector Herrera, I guess. I don't know. To me, that's the thing. Like, to me, right, he didn't mean anything. I'm sure that to you guys, it meant a little bit more just because of the national team connection and all that and everything he meant for the national team. But to me, like, whenever he came, I'll be honest, I was kind of shocked.
Vega.
Yeah, I was shocked. I was even shocked the second time whenever like they put him in that. I think it was the first game he went in and like the people went wild. Even when he started like working me up and stuff, I was like, man, I didn't know like people liked him that much. But obviously, we live in Houston. There's a lot of Mexican nationals and a lot of people that still remember those days when he was kicking and rocking.
Yeah, at one point he was. Yeah, I mean, even though he wasn't a big time goal scorer, but I mean, he's. Yeah, certainly in his younger years before all the surgery and everything.
But Santi Jimenez, right? That's his name? No, not Santi Jimenez.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's any. I don't think he's gonna be here anytime soon.
Raul. I was thinking. I love Raul. He was great. That injury, unfortunately, killed his career in a sense.
No, but he's still scoring goals.
In a sense, I think he was destined for greatness. Like for sure, I saw that dude like so high and like he on my list of like goal scorers.
I think every single Mexican fan remembers that I wouldn't call it half volley. I guess it was the straight up bicycle kick that basically took Mexico into the World Cup a few years back because it looked like they weren't going to make it. So I mean, love them or hate them type of player, especially for the Mexican fans.
No, I mean, and it's hard to find like a real magnet. That's why to me, I mean, I think I said at the time. Herrera was going to be a plus because, the national team tie, but he's nowhere near the level of popularity as a Chicharito or a Carlos Vela was. So anybody that would have those expectations, I mean, they needed a reality check. And it's hard to find those guys. That, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but that's why for me, James Rodriguez, I mean, that dude's a magnet for popularity with the Colombians. Certainly, that's a market that's big in Houston.
Real Madrid fans, Bayern Munich fans. I mean,
that's another reason why. I mean, even people might say, "Oh, he's
Everton
crazy because
fans.
he's old."
So let me ask you this question then. How important is it? Because I think we come to it like a fork in the road in a sense. Because on one sense you have, I mean, I guess we can. Me personally, I'll put this out there. I don't like James Rodriguez as a player. I don't think he's that valuable when it comes to a club. When a national team, dude is a killer. I don't know what he does. He's like double personality, whatever. But to me, he's two different players, right? But I guess the fork in the road is, I don't know if he would have fit in this team personally, club wise. So is it where do you? I guess.
Well, he's one that you would have brought in for marketing more than
exactly.
On the field.
So I guess the question would be like, how much are you willing to sacrifice like the soccer product on the field for the marketing purposes, and then the opposite, or I guess the opposite. Like, are you willing to give it all, or like get players that
and I will say like
a system
in
but
that
they're not known.
case, in that case specifically, I feel that Minnesota had already pretty much sold everybody good. You know, they got rid of their goalkeeper and a bunch of
Yeah.
other players. And so I think James Rodriguez would give them some relevancy as far as, just
Keep their
as
name
you guys
up
mentioned,
there.
somebody's out
Yeah.
there, right? And
Yeah.
so I think it's a case by case scenario,
Desperation move.
but it is
Yeah,
also
so-
important because we have fans, and no matter what, you're not gonna make everybody happy, right? You got fans that are go
there's
for the
people that
youth, go for the
are telling me
homegrown,
you're
go for the
crazy.
Houstonians.
Yeah.
And then there's the guy that is, screaming at the television, "Why didn't we get Mbappe?" Right? It's just the, and this, there's the
Yeah.
extremes, and granted, there's in every case, but I mean, it doesn't hurt that whenever you saw Hector Herrera come in, first of all, people that have been following the team is like, what? Like, is this real? Who messed up with the Wikipedia at this point, right? It was just nonsense. But again, it's one of those that is there. You mentioned about the people showing up. You heard booed, you heard everybody, right? Whatever the case may be, but people were showing up to see him, and then it's like you really didn't see him around town. It feels like now they're doing it. I know, Victor, you were out there at it.
Well, and I said because it's not just Hector Herrera. I mean, you've seen this. Messi's in a kind of category of his own, obviously.
Yeah.
He's in
but
every
even-
single commercial when you turn the
Yeah,
TV on. I mean, the guys
but
in
I mean-
low, a bunch of stuff.
But even Beckham, Henry, when we had Pirlo in MLS,
Yeah.
after they passed to town the first time, the second time the attendance, I mean, it was still good, but for some of these, it wasn't the same. And so that's the level for those kind of stars. That's why for me, I said, man, you got to continually push this guy out there. You got to get him out to schools. I mean, again, think of it, and especially if the guy's willing. Because look, and I'm sure you guys as well, in this line of work, you get to know some of these players, and not everybody's not everybody's an angel, and not everybody's easy to work with. And I try to factor that in as well when you're talking about some of these things on the field, and because that's part of managers have to deal with egos and all this kind of stuff. But Herrera has come across to one of those guys that everybody has an ego, but he seems to be one of the manageable, workable players that, again, he seems to be available. There's players that are like, nah, I'm not doing any of this, or what, so again, that's why to me, if a player seems to be that open to be out and tells you, because I mean, not every player will take the initiative. Herrera has to say, and this was, in his first stint, hey man, I want to see that stadium packed. I want to do everything possible so that we have them packed, because I played at NRG with Mexico and it's been packed, and I know how it feels. And man, that to me, I think that for a club, you dream for players to have that type of attitude, right? Messi isn't doing all the media appearances. Messi is, and again, he's in the class of his own. But I'm just saying, I don't know how open he is to certain things. I mean, I've seen him do some, like throw out the ball at Dodgers and that kind of stuff. But I mean, are they going to hit him around Koreatown, right? Muller seems to be a guy that's hitting it. James may not be. But again, here he would have been, just putting him on the field would have gotten Colombians to the game, and you would have had probably the whole rest of the year sold out. And you could have done a deal like Minnesota where you just brought him here for 6 months or whatever it is. And again, not everybody's a big star like that, so it is a case by case, and I think you have to kind of see which ones are worth it. But when you have something, and they went after Herrera, but I think you have to go for it when you have a chance like that, and the rest will complement it. The homegrowns, the other stars like a Bogish, that's a star in MLS, but maybe not as known. That's another thing too. When I say the marketing, kind of long-winded here, right? But I just want to. There's some good stories here, man, that they have, because nobody else is going to tell them. And I'll say it here because I've lived this career. We're on a budget, man.
Yeah.
We're trying to make ends meet too. So, I mean, I don't get to tell all the stories, and certainly not every outlet does. And again, I used to dream of the day. I mean, I watch almost nightly, not tonight because I'm here with you guys, but Channel 45 or Channel 47, which is in Spanish, Univision, Telemundo, and almost every night they have something, a little capsule, something on the Dynamo. I know there's not that coverage in English, but again, we used to dream of the days we had that kind of coverage on TV, local TV, and at least we get it in Spanish. And also shout out to those guys. And there's ways to push that. We haven't heard enough about Jack McGlynn and his road to this World Cup. Is he going to make the U.S. roster? Bogusz, could he play for Poland? Right? Guillermo played with Neymar, and we haven't seen anything on the chronicle.
There's a lot of stories, yeah.
I mean, and those are just three, right? And we can go guy by guy by guy. Jonathan Bond, and being a Chelsea fan, Lucas Halter, where he's coming from, Eric Sviatchenko, and what he meant at Celtic and in Denmark, and that's where I say that's where they could help themselves a little bit more in the marketing and telling some of these stories. And I haven't even gotten to the dash.
A bunch of those guys are so willing. I mean, Eric is one of example.
Absolutely, they want the attention, dude. I'll say, because you guys have, I mean, they might think, I have a gripe with Olsen. I don't. I want him to open up the playbook, but dude, you have one of the most legendary players in MLS as your coach. Why is that story not being told?
Yep.
Right. Yep. I'd be told that. I mean, Pat Onstad, who was a club legend, and why, every now and then, I mean, there's all these other stories. In any other countries, media outlets would be going to Brian Ching and, hey, what do you think of the Dynamo? They'd
Across
be
the
asking
street
every month. Exactly. If this was Boca, if this was River, if this was America or Chivas. Absolutely, they'd be asking. I mean, and there's talk every day, and I mean, and I think that's
going to, you mentioned the English media, or it's the fact of, again, they're not ready. I don't think they understand how big this event is going to be, and when it's here, it's going to be bananas, and they're going to be so late to a lot of this stuff. And
there's going to be media outlets from the Netherlands, from Germany, from Portugal, from Cabo Verde, from all these countries that land here. And they're going to do lives outside the stadium. They're going to do lives outside at downtown, nightly coverage, right? Emanating from any part of town, wherever their fans are. And they're going to dig into, hey, well, let's tell you about Houston. Here's the local team. And they're probably just going to go off the little that they know. But again, I mean, I'm ready for it. I think it'll be an eye-opener for a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people really grasp how big soccer is in the rest of the world. And again, I think we've been, trying to toot the horn and trying to let them know that, man, this is untapped potential here with Houston. And there's no reason why you can't be, you call me crazy, as big as the Astros, the Texans, the Rockets, locally and worldwide.
I'm about to start crying, bro.
No, it's
it's
crazy. No, it is.
It's a World Cup in Houston. Like, literally, I mean, we grew up here. Like,
what's crazy
and
is,
at different levels, but like, we grew up here. Like, I rep Houston this, as much as you guys do. And like, you talk about Robertson Stadiums, and you talk about, like, man, I wanted the day to hear Dynamo on TV. Just, like, it's crazy that, we come so far in a way, right? And
dude,
I mean,
those players on pure grit, like, held their own against Pachuca. One of the, I mean, they won the Sudamericana, by the way. You can tell people what that means. I mean, and that was, again, based on just pure grit. They went to Estadio Hidalgo, and they took those guys.
There's history here.
They took those guys to extra time, man. I mean, No, these guys can't get up for a freaking MLS game on a damn Saturday, and that's why, to me, I mean, and again, a lot of this is just injecting that passion into them. They want to see people in the stands. They want to see the coverage. They want their stories told. And the Dash too. They may not say it. You don't think they're looking at the Summit, who just had 60,000 people at the Mile High Stadium, and saying, man, why can't we have a game, even if it's a one-off at NRG one day?
Or a full house, just a 20. Like, that's
double header. We've been talking about this. Do a double header. Do a Houston
and there's
Dynamo,
little efforts.
Dash.
I applaud them for what they did with the band, because they need a bigger vibe in that stadium. To me, I mean, if you're looking at it business-wise, an empty seat has a monetary value to it. Dude, I'm still mad about who was it, Nguyen, that gave the ball straight.
Holding a grudge.
And the fact they lost that final up in New England, and I mean, and these are all things that we can go back. Dude, for the 20-year history, and maybe we'll get to it when we get to 25 years. Dude, I heard nothing about the people that went and protested to try to get a stadium built, to try to get that place built. Fought hard for it, man. And to see it empty, to see it soulless sometimes, I mean, that's why it gets me at sometimes. And I know I'm a little loud for most people's taste, but to me, I mean, we have one lifetime, man, and I don't want to. I don't want to get to 40 and not see this team challenge for MLS Cup and still be just kind of, doing bare minimum at times. I'm not saying that's essentially what they're doing now, not being held to a higher standard, having to bow down to the Seattles of this league when Houston was higher,
finals. I mean, having
complacency,
finals,
bro.
But no, I think it's a good point because you say I don't want to talk about the past, but it's important to know. It's important to know the history. And under Ted Siegel, the new ownership, yes, they've changed a lot of things, and things look like they're getting better. There's still a lot of things missing, and hopefully they get there. Whatever the end goal may be for the owners, at the end of the day, we understand it's a business. No matter what league it is, that's kind of how it goes. But at the end of the day, like, just reviving the club as a whole. And you mentioned, I mean, for the longest time, it was just this ugly stadium with faded seats that people were, so hopeful opening.
Listen, Robertson wasn't the most luxurious place.
It wasn't. It wasn't. I was there. Just concrete seats got a little hot, in the summer for sure, man. But no, it's an interesting point, man. And Victor, I know this is a longer episode, and I was hoping that it was long, but man, you are obviously always welcome to continue this topic. And I think there's going to be a lot, especially leading into the World Cup. And if, big media may not tell the stories, we're going to have to do our best.
Well, they can help
that as well.
I'll just reveal real quickly, because I got a chance at some point when she was here with the marketing director, SJ. And I, there's little things that they can do. I told them, hey, now, because remember, there was days when they didn't have charter flights. You got a plane all to yourself. You got some extra seats. Hey, don't take me if I'm not big enough. Invite Channel 11 and Channel 26 and Channel 2. And they did it for the Open Cup. That was one game. I mean, you can do that and have constant away coverage. Yes. And those are ways the team could, I don't think, to me, that's any extra, because again, the plane's already paid for. I don't know if unless they charge for you to bring extra people on board, but the Texans do it, the Rockets do it. I feel go talk to those sportscasters and ask them how they do it. And I don't see why little efforts like that would advance the coverage little by little, right? And that's ways you can help yourself.
100%.
And it's funny because again, we're getting to the closing aspect of it, and I want to echo some of what you're saying, because sometimes, man, I turn the radio on or I turn the TV on, and it's really the same thing over and over the entire day about the same sport, and it's
and they're going to be forced to talk about it this summer, brother.
No, absolutely.
They're going to talk about it one way or another.
And my point is that it's like sometimes I'm like, man, I already heard about this Astros game, about this NFL game. You can't give 10 minutes about soccer in general. It's like it's completely non-existent to a lot of the media, right? And
I used to and it's Dynamo mentioned on the radio. I mean, it was like, hey, we exist.
Yeah. So
they exist.
Exactly. Like, it's interesting. Again, I think like we try our best, but it gets to the point that our we can only go so far.
It's a thankless job. It's a thankless job because at some point you get as complacent sometimes because of the same environment. I mean, I've suffered it. I've kind of where I've hit a bit of a lull as well, and that's why I try to because believe me, there's times I didn't hit the send button on some of those things where I'm like, nah, I'm just I'll let it go. But there's some where it's just like, nah, come on, man, somebody's gotta have a pulse in this town. And again, I go back to the days where I say we as a town fought to we were just glad to have an MLS team. we were scared to lose it because there was times when it was like, well, if they don't get a stadium, they might move to Atlanta or some other city. Again, I think maybe that's part of why the players felt the need to, also because they probably weren't getting paid as much as now.
Yeah.
And they had to, do some of these local camps and all that stuff. Chris Wondolowski, right? He was doing camps before he became, an MLS all-time scorer. And again, and that's where I wish, and again, in every other part of the world, the Manchester United legends come out and speak. The Boca legends come out and speak. And that's where I wish, too, where we had some guy, Brian Ching. He's got nothing to lose, man. To me, I would love to see a guy like him stand up a little more for the club over the years. But I get it. He's got the bar, and he's probably not trying to, and a lot of these people, I'm sure, are acquaintances, and they don't, but I again, for the fans that over the years have wanted to see a better product and just see them be a champion again. That to me is where
I change things.
Yeah.
I think we all want what's best here.
How excited?
Go Chris. Go finish.
No, I was gonna say, how excited were you when they had that like run a couple of years back?
The 2023?
Yeah.
Look, because I kind of look at the team, because I analyze it for what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get carried away because I thought they had a ceiling. I thought, man, because they're playing Corey Baird, and they're at some point they're going to run into a team that's not going to be good enough.
Yeah.
And it didn't surprise me that they got lightning in the bottle because, again, here's where maybe you see some fans, they're not fans for a long time, right? Because that same thing happened in 2017 under Wilmer Cabrera. They got to the Western Conference Finals, and you can have a run like that in MLS where you get to within, just before, right there to where you're saying, but I think analyzing it and knowing how they got past Salt Lake, and I think they caught a little bit of a lucky break there. So I was hoping they get to the final. I didn't get as carried away because I kind of felt at some point you're going to run into a team that is just going to be too good for you. And that's what happened.
In your opinion,
that's a red card game too, by the way. Anibaba.
And in your opinion, how big like the championship itself, or how big an influence of winning a US Open Cup is, like for a team like the Dynamo or a club like the Dynamo?
Well, I think it's great for the fans. It's great for the fan. I don't think it does, unfortunately. And I like the Open Cup. I wish it would become more important in this country. I wish they would do a final on a weekend like the Copa del Rey or an FA Cup. I don't think we're ever going to see it. I wish it had more importance, right? I was glad when they got to the final with Miami because, again, that's probably the most watched Open Cup final because, Messi was going to play in it and then he didn't. So, but I mean, it happened and who remembers it? I think, the people that were there, the fans at that time, but I think that's as far as it goes. I don't think it gets you more relevancy. I think it could be a step to becoming, an MLS contender again. Remember, Seattle started that way. Before they won an MLS Cup, they were winning Open Cups. They won like 4 in a row. And that was their way to kind of build that culture back or build that culture up in MLS, I should say, because they started as an expansion team. So I think if the Dynamo are heading that way and they're saying, listen, we got to, especially now that you got half the team or you got the playoff teams out because they basically have to put their MLS Next Pro sides. So basically the teams in MLS, like the field is shorter for the contenders. I think absolutely you got to go for it just to have that one in the bank. And then you can start to maybe build a couple of those. And then maybe that catapults you up into MLS Cup status. But you have to build that process. You can't just do what you did last year and kind of clean house without replenishing it.
My last one for now is what do you think the timeline looks like for the Dynamo to win another MLS Cup? 5, 10 years, 1, 2.
ChatGPT says
short,
like 40
short
years.
term, long term. I know it's a difficult question, right? But like,
if Olsen doesn't open the playbook, I don't see it, man.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
I think they have to be
Open the
more
playbook.
attack oriented. I don't like them playing this conservative style where they invite teams to come into their
Come
half of the
forward.
field, especially at home, and then try to catch them on, the other side.
Yeah.
I'd like to see them try to take teams more head on. I'd
Mhm.
like to see them, and not every game is going to be a 4-0 game, but I just like to see them take a little bit more control of the
Initiative.
scoreline, not do what they did in that year where it's like, yeah, initiative, but also just, own the game, put it out of reach, or just kind of take control of it. So we're 60-minute, you're controlling them at home, and you're not trying to come back like against Portland. That shouldn't be. That's a great moment because it worked out, but you don't want to have those kind of games every time.
Yeah.
And that's I don't like to see that kind of soccer, especially at home. I think if you're on the road, and that's probably a different strategy. But I think, and especially because in this league, man, I think you can take it to them. I think they could have taken it to LAFC and beat them. That was a winnable game. I don't think you bow down to a Seattle this week, and I think again, this isn't Mexico or any other place in Latin America where media is going to hold you to every word you say.
It's forgiving.
Dude, go out there and go for it sometimes. And you're not going to be able to do that all the time, but risk it a little more. That's all I'm saying. I'd like to see, like I said, I'd like to see them put the best 11 on the field. If you don't have the players this week if it doesn't make sense to go 5 at the back, go with a formation that gets the best 11, right? If you don't have enough center backs to go 3 at the back because you want to have one on the bench, shift the lineup a little bit. I mean, I don't think you have too much to lose in this league.
You don't.
And again, because I think you're trying to win people over. That's why, again, I'd like to see a little bit more of attacking soccer. But
I agree with that a lot. Just because I feel like this is a league of not a lot of consequences. I mean, we saw that last year. I mean, they went 10. I think the first 10 games without a win. And I was telling the guys, like, how I think the leash for Ben Olsen got long because he went so far the previous year.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it would have been any other league in the world, he would have been cut. Like, or at least.
And that's not to say that's what should have happened, but right.
No,
but
of course.
But
like, here the conversation would have been very loud. Not as I feel like it wasn't loud enough, in my opinion. And I got pushback from the other guys, obviously, very MLS, like every MLS dudes, right? Like they understand like, the dynamics is completely different here. Because you can lose the first 10 games and then get hot the last 5 and still make it to the playoffs and still win the MLS Cup.
It is because you're not fighting for survival. And I'm not just talking about like promotion relegation. I think anywhere else in the world, you're in charge of your own operations. So you're in charge of, I mean, hey, you're not getting Adidas as part of the package. Hey, if you're not a popular team, you're wearing something else, buddy.
Exactly.
You probably got to have a bunch of sponsors on the jersey, and so those kind of things, right? Where I think they're not, they're not forced to be hungry, right? They don't have the necessity that like a Puebla and Liga MX would have, right? Or any other. I mean, Argentina, you could probably name me, one of the teams that they're not Boca River, so they gotta. They got to scrap for a little bit more than some of the, and that happens in Europe as well. Not everybody's, Real Madrid and Barcelona and Valencia maybe has to, do things a little bit differently, or a Sevilla. And I, you guys started with the whole, Real Madrid, Barcelona. I'll,
bring it full circle, Victor.
I'm a fan of Atletico. And again, I think that kind of system. Again, bringing in the youth, selling off players, you can have them go to different clubs, reinvest that money, create that same type of culture where people, nunca dejes de creer, and where it's, where they feel a connection with the club. And they're not the only club, but that's been one of the most successful, where they're up there now with, the Barcelonas and the Real Madrids consistently, right? I know maybe not results wise, but I'm saying as far as money, competing. And so I'm not, people might think I'm the kind of guy who was like, oh, you have to have a designated player. No, I think absolutely it has to make sense. But I think I say it from the sense of, I want this club to be relevant and to win people over. And that's why I think if you got a James, that's a home run, and go get it, right? But if it doesn't make any sense, the same way I wanted the Astros to go after Justin Verlander, and it happened, and look what it did, right? Look how it lifted the level of that team, and they went on to win a World Series. And I think so. There's a time and place for each one. Man, we could be here all day, man. But
yeah, no, absolutely. But Victor, man, thanks again.
There's a romanticism with the sport that I think this club needs to tap into.
And okay, before
you're talking to Romeo here.
Riquelme, Romeo.
¿Dónde
está Julieta?
Roman.
No, but it goes to that point because I mean, even us, look at us. Like, you know, I have season tickets still. Obviously, I don't make it as a fan as much as I used to, and even then, after, you know, moving into beat media, covering the team, I do my best to disassociate myself, my fandom, so I could, you know, cover the team in the correct way in that sense, and be critical when I have to be critical, and not be, you know, just a happy-go-lucky fan. That there's nothing wrong with that, but I think you need to be able to say how it is. And it's interesting that, you know, because we don't see big media outlets, and I think there's always that talk of like, you know, why isn't it, you know, full on, you know, national news or local news? But
hey, if they pack that place every weekend, there'd be media there.
Absolutely, but I
if they had a big star, there'd be media there.
But I also see, and yeah, especially if like they're packing, and then the Astros are how the Astros were, you know, before they started winning.
I got 20 bucks.
Listen, I'm one of the proponents that, hey, get Hector to speak English. Get Hector to speak English.
Just to do more media.
Because he's the biggest star you have.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
I can talk.
Tejas. Yeah. No, I'm just making a joke of Tejas.
Yeah, Tejas. He just did a English thing recently. But no, I totally agree, man. And again, I we've already gone much longer than
it's
I
fine.
expected,
We got another
hour.
No.
I think no. Whenever I reach out to Victor, I'm like, Victor, like, this is like, it needs to be said again, especially we do this all the time, but it's great to get that we aren't the only ones that think this way, and the sense of like the way that it's not to be critical and bash on a club and the sport here in Houston, but is the idea of like, we still see the potential and how bigger it can be, right? And I think that's everybody that covers the sport, and whether it be the professional aspect of it or even grassroots aspect of it, understands, you know, the importance of the sport.
And we have it, you know, hit close to home. I mean, you guys know, and I'm sure we've all done this, where we've taken a family or friends out to a game, and you know, you can only convince them so far, right? Yeah. And again, I think, to me, the heartbreaking thing is there's been fans over the years that pour their heart and soul into this team, spend thousands of dollars on this team, and they become disenchanted with the club. And I think it would be easier putting the effort in to win those people back and have them be loyal than whoever we're trying to win over now with, and I'm not saying you don't cater to everyone. I think you absolutely have to have a marketing approach where you go for everybody.
It's the business thing, right? How much harder is it to get new business than the
when people are loyal? I think they're willing to spend money for you, and especially in Houston, Texas, there's people of all backgrounds, all economic.
They're loyal to grocery stores. They're loyal to anything.
Dude, you got a concert in town. People will spend money in Houston, Texas, if they want to. Yeah. You just gotta make them care a little bit about the Dynamo. That's what I think.
And I think, I mean, Rudy, you can attest to this. You can say yes or no. You just blink twice. But the club. I mean, the club, I think, also dropped the ball on a bunch of the season ticket holders. I mean, when you look at all the things that they used to do and like the things that they don't do anymore, I feel like, I'm not a season ticket holder. But you read stuff online and, it's more grievances than, praises.
Absolutely.
And going back to that, right? Like, how can the club, get that loyal fan base? I mean, those are your, going to like a religious term, but like those are your evangelists. I mean, we have Webb, he's in freaking Spain.
He's still paying for his ticket, by the way. And if anybody wants a free supporters ticket, hit up Web Tilton.
There you go.
But that's another example of
Yes.
you know how much Web is supported to this club. I'll share this with you. I won't share a name, but he was called negative by one of the top executives in this
That's
team
wild.
a few years back. Exactly. And I mean,
Right.
He's the most positive guy ever.
Yes, he had.
So
Damn.
But
yeah,
you're allowed to be a little critical.
Fight that
and anyways, but I mean, and that's
Where's
a guy
Matt
who's
Jordan?
still paying.
guy.
Anyways,
You might have one in the club right now. But listen,
Yes.
now Webb still pays for his ticket, and he just gives it out to whoever wants to go out for I guess for a game. So hit him up and
OG.
and last one I'll mention. I know we've been going on here a little long. That brings me back to Leo Ponce, and he used to be the guy that takes somebody out to a game, and they did the Leo's row, and that's kind of something that's kind of gone for it got forgotten, and maybe we'll see if this regime eventually brings it back or somebody does. But these are all little things, initiatives that can grow, and obviously people will respect you more for it, and
Traditions.
when you bunch more love.
True.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Hey, Victor, thanks again for joining us again. This is, you're always invited into this show, man. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the support as well. But where can people,
thank you guys.
Find your work? I know I feel like you're everything, anything soccer. I feel like I see.
I try.
We need to Victor Araiza show sometime.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get that done. If we can string a GoFundMe or something, we'll figure it out.
Alex, be like, hey, yo, Alex.
Yeah, we'll get there.
I got a project.
Yeah, obviously Victor Araiza everywhere on social media. I'm pretty easy to find, and I'm always open to talk Dynamo. Obviously.
All right, man. Thank you again, Chris. Man, if you can tell the people how they can connect, and we'll close it out.
Yeah, as always, guys, BayouCitySoccer.net is a website. Anything and everything Houston Soccer, you can find it there. Don't forget to check out X, Facebook, Instagram, the YouTube channel, Blue Sky, everywhere that you are going to find us. It's going to be under Bayou City Soccer. So check out the website. Articles dropping literally every day. And then check out FootMob. If you have the app, we're also there on the news tab. So if you dash news, Dynamo News, Dynamo 2, Dynamo Dos News, we're literally everywhere. So BayouCitySoccer.net. Don't forget, we also have a special Discord, not special, but a little private Discord chat for all those guys that would like to contribute to the cost. It's only like $3 a month, and you can go in there. We are always chatting on there, and also we get some inside scoops, and we let you know too. So why not? Get to know before your friend knows at BayouCitySoccer.net.
There you go.
There you go.
But thank you guys so much for joining us again, Victor. And no matter what, don't forget to hold it down. Keep it forever orange. Go Houston.
There you go.
Go Houston.